What is anti-aliasing? We are going to get into anti-aliasing today. It's a very important concept to understand in Photoshop. But first, let's talk about what aliasing is, because if we don't know what aliasing is, we can't know what anti-aliasing is. So, this A is aliased. You can see that this A looks like it's made up of Lego bricks. This is like a Lego brick staircase of an A. Now, aliasing, you also might be familiar with aliasing in video games, right? It's anything where the image looks hard and pixelated instead of soft and smooth. And there are reasons why you would want it to be either way, um, but we're going to talk about what that does today. So let's draw a aliased circle. I'm going to use the circle selection tool, the elliptical marquee tool, and we're going to uncheck anti-alias. So that means this will be drawing an aliased circle, which means it'll have hard edges. It won't be softened at all. So we'll draw that circle. Let's draw it small, draw it pretty small, and we'll zoom in on it. And I'm going to grab my paint bucket tool, which can also have anti-alias turned on. So I have to make sure that it's unchecked in both places in order to draw something that is aliased. And I'm going to fill this in. And yeah, this blue is totally fine for right now. All right, so if we zoom in on this circle, deselect it, Command D, and we'll zoom in, we will see a very hard edge on the circle, and if we zoom in enough, we will be able to see, zoom in the right spot. If we zoom in enough, we will be able to see pixels. All right, so now we know what aliasing is. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just when something is pixelated. Anti-aliasing is something like this. So when you draw something in Photoshop that has anti-aliasing on, you are going to get a transition pixel that smooths it out. So basically, anti-aliasing is when the computer tries to smooth out the Lego bricks, but because it can't do that by putting in a half pixel or something like that, it smooths it out by adding transitionary colors. So let's go back to our circle, and we are going to draw another circle. But this time we are going to check off anti-alias. We'll draw a similar size circle. And with the fill buckets, anti-alias was on when we made the selection, so we probably won't need to turn it on for the fill bucket. Let's find out. So I'll do that and deselect. And even from this distance, you can see a difference between the edges here, but let's zoom in on them. So the edge on the right has had anti-aliasing, which means that it has been smoothed out, and the computer program has added some transitionary pixels. The edge on the left is aliased. Anti-aliasing was turned off for this, so we get a hard edge and a hard pixel. And what a big part of the reason why we need to understand anti-aliasing versus aliasing as textile designers is because of the selection tools that we can use. So we are always trying to select all of the color we use. We want to use exactly 8 flat colors, and in Photoshop, if we're textile designing in Photoshop, we want to be able to select all of those colors at once. So if I use the magic wand tool on this circle, it should get all the way up to the very edge, even if the tolerance is on 0, because all of the pixels are exactly blue. Where for the one on the right, even though it's doing a pretty good job of getting all of the pixels, even though the tolerance is there, this is not a reliable way to get that color. So we really need to be able to be sure that we understand what anti-aliasing is and when and where to use it, right? In a textile design, we need to be able to select all of the colors. But in a photograph, you probably don't want, in your mood boards, you probably don't want things to be pixelized like this, and you do want a more of a smoother edge. So having anti-aliasing checked off for photographs is a good thing, it's a positive. But having it checked off while you're trying to make a textile design can be very problematic later on when you go to try to adjust the colors of the textile design, right? If we use the magic wand tool with the tolerance on 0 on this A, we would get all of the A pretty much. And if we use it on this A, we would only get certain pixels. All right, so this is what we're trying to avoid in textile design by making sure we understand anti-aliasing and when to turn it off. Okay, so alias, it's not just your secret identity. It's not just a TV show from the early 2000s. It's when pictures get pixelated. Okay, and anti-aliasing is the way that Photoshop, as a computer system, decides to try to smooth that out. And sometimes you definitely don't want it on. Sometimes it's a good thing though. So get familiar with anti-aliasing, turning it on and off. It exists on many different tools. It exists on the fill tool, the paint bucket tool, many of the selection tools. So it's something you should always be checking for in your properties panel is anti-aliasing on? Is it going to mess me up later on as I'm trying to design these textile designs? All right, see you later. Bye.